Hey guys, it's just it's just little rule here today. It's just small comfy rule. Big rule isn't here. I'm just chilling by the log. I'm the one who usually makes the fire, you know. That guy, he just comes here and takes all the warmth. But he does give me this little blanket. He gives me the blanket. I don't know why it has cat ears, but I guess it looks cute. I guess it's worth making the fire. I like you guys. He comes here. I try to eat though. I try to eat, and he comes here and he's making noises. He reads and he sometimes he tries to read and then he just keeps talking loudly. I can't get any eepy. I can't get any eep. But usually the warmth, usually how cozy I am. I just shoo me. I fall asleep eventually. Oh wait, hang on, guys. He's here now. He's here. I'll shut up so he doesn't get angry at me for taking over his stream. Hello, welcome in. Did I hear a little voice? Did I hear a little voice before I got here? I thought I did. Were you guys talking amongst each other? That's what it must have been. Just chatting to each other. You don't see that blue line. That blue line isn't for you to see. Hello, Crespian. Hello, D. You got to see the starting screen? You did! Amazing. Aren't you up really early? D, why are you up so early? Hello, Clever. Hello, Vexing Cat. Welcome in. Nice to see you again. Thank you for the head pat, D. Little Ruru. Was he talking to you guys? You stay over there, little Ruru. You go eep. I'm gonna have to get you a new blanket soon. It's gonna be the same blanket. I have like 50 of those cat ear blankets. Daylight savings has hit us. Yay! That means you had to get up earlier. So like that's probably that sucks for you, unfortunately. You get an hour less sleep. They steal an hour of sleep from you. Can little Ruru talk? He's sleeping right now. I don't wanna wake him up though. I don't wanna wake him up. He's just an eepy little guy. Look at him. He's snoozing. Thank you, Clever, for the head pat. Ooh, thank you. That goes on for a lot longer than I realized. But he's an eepy little guy. He's not going to talk. He's going to just eep. I hope you guys are having a good start to your week. I had a decent start actually. I had to give a presentation today in front of not a load of people, but a decent amount of people. Like a full like conference room, a full board room. Not conference room. Conference sounds larger. A board room. And it went well. It was in front of mostly people my kind of level, and then a couple of people higher up. So that was a little intimidating. But once I got kind of talking, I kind of just kept going, and I made a joke that everyone laughed at a lot. Like it wasn't like it wasn't like the talker made kind of a funny comment, so you give it a little giggle. It was like a proper. so that made me feel good. You guys know when you make a room full of people laugh, it's like the best feeling ever. I can't imagine what it's like being like a professional comedian, and a good professional comedian, not like Joe Rogan's like five friends. Oh my god, winning? Yeah, I know. I'm doing well. I'm doing good. I was praised for it. I was told I did a good job. No head pats though, so thank you, Clever, for giving the head pat. Now, personally, I'd probably be a little weirded out if I did get head pats after that. You guys are the only ones who can give me head pats. That's kind of the thing. I need to set up a thing. No, that's gonna be more complicated. I'm gonna have to set up a thing that will detect if little Ruru is active. And then if he is, it can then allow you to head pat him. I want something like that. I want something that allows you to head pat little Ruru. So I might I might have to go ask Haru Haru for help. I assume it's just going to be some kind of like if function. Oh wait, no, wait. I remember he was showing me if functions, so I can definitely bumble around on Stremerbot until I figure that out. But I hope you guys are having a good start to your week. So I had a pretty good one. But yes, Clever, we're going to be starting a new book today. We're going to be starting a new little book. Now, I'm going to be honest. Now, it's not a little book in the sense of I got the hardback copy. Ooh, that's nice. I usually go for softback copies. And you know what I like about this? This is a hardback copy, but it doesn't have a sleeve. It doesn't have a hardback sleeve. And I will say, the hardback sleeves are quite nice. They often have really nice art and really nice kind of stuff. And then you take off the sleeve and it has that really... It's usually just like a single color with gold writing. And it's like, oh, that's nice. So like, if you have to get rid of the sleeve, at least it looks good. This one just has like... It's just the hardback. But it still has some nice art on it. But this is a book by B.H. Little Heart. It's all about Scipio Africanus. And if you don't know who Scipio Africanus is, this is Sun's guy, but it's a big claim. Scipio Africanus was a Roman who effectively saved and won the Carthaginian War for Rome. They defeated the Carthaginians. He defeated Hannibal. And it's a really interesting story. And I read a few pages of it. And the writing style is really nice, really nice. At least a little bit that I've read so far. What was I going to say? Oh yes, it's a little bit archaic, tiny bit, but it seems pretty decent. The only thing I am worried about is like, because it's from like the 1920s, like if he says something that's like, if he uses like terms for different groups of people, that's like not good. Like, I'm not even saying like necessarily slurs, just like 100 years ago. I'm saying like, you know, he could use the Spanish word for black, which was just a term. It was just kind of the term that was used to describe certain people sometimes. Of course, it has connotations to bad things, but yeah, I'm a little worried that could pop up. And if I'm just reading along, I don't want to. I'm gonna be a little bit vigilant on that, because this book will likely cover all different groups of people. Because I do believe at one point, call them Moors. I don't think, would the Moors have been around at this point? No, they would have all been Phoenicians. Well, not Phoenicians. They would have been Phoenicians, but then further down you would have had certain other groups. Well, what are they called? The fucking I remember Mauritanians. That's it, Mauritanians, Berbers. Were Berbers around at this point? I guess for me, Moors is more reflective of the kind of Muslim conquest of that region, kind of that group. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they were just the same people. Maybe I'm overestimating how much the Muslim conquest of North Africa changed the populace at this time. At that time, anyway. That's another couple of 100 years. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into it. And actually, funnily enough, it's called Scipio Africanus, Greater Than Napoleon. And one of my favorite history books, I've read it on stream, was Philip II of Macedon, Greater Than Alexander. So obviously that's a callback to this book, because this says apparently this is a very well respected book, very well researched. I'm sure at this point, it's, you know, they know they could possibly know some further stuff. Hello, First Hour. Welcome in. How you doing? We're just talking about the book we're going to be reading. So it's not very ASMR right now. It's not very ASMR, I think. But in a little bit when we start reading. Now, I was actually meaning to say, it's about 280 pages. However, unlike the last book, where it was 300 plus, and the text was quite small, the text in this page, on these pages, is very tiny. Or sorry, no. Is very large is what I mean to say. In comparison to most normal books, It's and it's not just that. It's also indexed really thinly too. I might have to post a page of it on Twitter to show you guys like the size of the text we're dealing with. It's pretty nice. Hello, Rena for Ka_u. Welcome in, welcome in. Thank you for the follow. Did you guys see old man font size? I know my eyesight is getting bad in my old age. My 1800 years it's getting difficult to see. But um what was I gonna say? Oh, I lost my train of thought. Oh, sorry, that's what it was. Did you guys see when I got the follow? Did you guys see that my eyes did this? I set that up. Because I want anytime a follow happens, I want to be able to go and have my eyes be all big and sparkly. I think it's cute. I think it's very cute. I'm stealing that from an ASMR streamer. I can't remember her name. I just remember seeing it ages ago. But I think it's a sweet little thing. It's a sweet thing. That's so cool. Do I have other? I think I have a few other redeems. I think I have I now have you. Okay. Oopsies. I was toggling and I toggled off my ability to speak. But yeah, I think it's a cute little thing to be able to go and look at them. It's cute. Hydrate. I will hydrate. I have a cup of tea right next to me. Ooh, that was nice. It's getting a little bit. It's not cold. It's like getting lukewarm. It's just starting to go down. Most important, yes. Most important to stay hydrated. Homies. I almost said hydro homos. No, not hydro homos, but I suppose that's okay too. If that's how you need to like encourage yourself to hydrate, then I guess it's a good thing. But anyway, hydration check. All my hydro homies know the drill. Better be drinking that H2O. You need to drink before you feel thirsty. Sip, sip. Also, don't forget to blink. Oh no, now I'm going to be aware I'm blinking. Hydro Homos, the title of that one Skebrew. God, no. Son, I don't know if you guys saw, I did raid into him. But my friend Son Albionus, he got his live 2D. And Son Albionus is the individual that Skeb is with. Hello Kabu! Hello Kabu! Welcome in. If you guys want to see a guy rock the dance floor, no need to look any further than Mr. Kabu over here. He does dancing 3D. He has a 3D model and he does dancing streams, and he's very flexible, very well balanced, very well coordinated. It's really cool to see. So you guys should definitely check him out. He also does other stuff, I believe, but welcome in, Kabu. It's nice to have you here. I wish I was. I have a few dance moves, you guys know. I have a few dance moves. I'm nowhere near him, but I could pull some stuff out. I've been complimented a few times by random people coming up to me, telling me that I move well. It usually takes a lot of whiskey though. It takes a little bit of whiskey to get me nice and loose. You got distracted watching cat videos and now it's 10 p.m. and the shop is closed. No cheeseburgers for you, son. Oh no, poor son. The man needs to live on cheeseburgers. It's the only thing he can apparently. Well, you know what? Considering his cooking, I think I can understand why he loves the cheeseburgers. Son, if you learn how to make cheeseburgers, you would be a very happy person. You're also lacking in baked beans. Oh no. Oh, nice. Good job, Twitch. It caught another likely ban evader. Good job. They, these bots are having really cool names these days. This one is called Circulating Half-Life. That's a really great name. What the fuck? There was another one ages ago as well. I apologize for cursing. There was another one ages ago. I can't remember what his name was though, but I remember it was also cool. Like, it was cool enough that I kind of took notice for a sec. I was like, Can they stop stealing all the good names? Grilled cheese. Oh, I love ham and cheese sandwiches. I love them. I love them. I love them. I love them. Ham and cheese sandwiches with cheese and onion crisp. Is that good? Some of the bots have hacked accounts. Oh, yeah. You know, that is sad. Be careful, guys. Make sure you have two-factor authentication and all that good stuff. Have a good, strong password. When it happens to people on Discord, like, how are you going to recover your friends if your Discord gets deleted? That's a very good point. Thankfully, most of my friends are all in, like, the same servers. I think it would just be annoying for, like, I would lose my server. I don't post. It's not very active, but I'd still lose it. I'd have to join, and then, like, it's just such a hassle. That's why it's important to be possible. I have finally taken over this account. No, Clever. No, Clever. Don't post all the weird things that you might post. Don't. No. You're going to turn me on say so. Who's this red-headed fem... I'm sorry. Are these... Is this the chest of a femboy? I don't think so. Are these the traps of a femboy? I don't think so. Not that kind of trap, by the way. Doesn't work like that. Anyway, enough talk about femboys. How the fuck do we get onto that? Let's get into the book, because I think now's a good time to get into it. So we're gonna get into some cozy little readings. Oh, and yes, by the way, Son Albionus, he got his live 2D down there. Wait, no, over there. I'm looking down here at you guys, but also over here. Over there, Son Albionus, he got his live 2D. It was rigged by our friend Bonnie Paws, and she's a really cool dog too. So go check him out. If someone hacked someone's account, got their VTuber model, and pretended to be them, and did it so well that people weren't sure if it was them, that's advanced skin walking right there. That's advanced skin walking. Like the poor man's skinwalker just posts anonymously and pretends to be you. The real skinwalkers, they hack your account and convince everyone that they're you. But let's get into B.H. Little Hearts. Scipio Africanus, greater than Napoleon. And thank you, Clever. Thank you. Very nice. Very cute. Now let's get into it. By the way, I mentioned that this is a very nicely written book from the few pages that I've read. And I just want to read the bibliography, because I think at the back of the book, so this is page 281, but often books like these have loads of notes, loads of extra detail and some really cool stuff. And oftentimes the notes are just filled with references, and it's kind of annoying. Ruadh talking about the Romans. Yes, son, this is your stream. It's not your stream, but it's a stream for you. It's for you. It's specifically for you. It's specific for you. I need to stop looking over here where I have the things. I'm gonna move this over here. There we go. Your guy. Yeah, it's for you, son. But I'm just going to read the bibliography, just to give you guys a taste of how he writes. I like it anyway. After due reflection and discussion with others, I have decided not to litter the actual pages of the book with footnote references, but to list the various historical sources in the bibliographical appendix. The modern fashion tends to treat a historical study as a literary card index rather than as a book to be read, and in many instances this tendency is carried so far that the footnotes swamp the text. Experience suggests that even the barest footnote reference is a distraction to the reader's eye, and momentarily dams the flow of the narrative through his mind.
For this reason, I have omitted references from the actual pages except where they could be woven into the text. And if some readers hold that I err in this decision, I can at least plead that I do so in good company. The ancient sources, all of which except Polybius require to be treated with critical caution, have been Polybius, Livy, Appian, Aulus Gellius, Cornelius Nepos, Plutarch, and Valerius Maximus.
Hello, Inca. Welcome in, welcome in. Hello, Mama. Hello, Mama. Thank you for joining. I hope I can be a relaxing streamer for you.
Man hates footnotes. He hates them. He hates them. I do like footnotes because I like the extra addition of information. But sometimes he is right. Especially when they're at the back of the book, or when every footnote except like 2 or 3 are just all references to different texts. Then it can get annoying. But sometimes you turn a page and like 3/4 of that page is just a footnote. It's like, oh, okay, I think this might be a little bit important. But let's get into the book. Oh, there's a list of maps. Okay, it doesn't start. Okay, the maps don't start until like page 46. So maybe I'll take a break to take, not take a break, but I'll try and take the photos of them if I think they're important. Are there other things? Okay, no, there's contents. Okay. Preface. The excuse for this book is that no recent biography of Scipio exists. The first and last in English appeared in 1817, and this is from 1923, and is the work of a country clergyman who omits any study of Scipio as a soldier. The reason for this book is that, apart from the romance of Scipio's personality and his political importance as the founder of Rome's world dominion, his military work has a greater value to modern students of war than that of any great captain of the past. A bold claim, and yet its truth will, I hope, be substantiated in the following pages. For the study of tactical methods, the campaigns of Napoleon or of 1870, even of 1914 to 1918 perhaps, are as dead as those of the 3rd century BC. But the art of generalship does not age, and it is because Scipio's battles are richer in stratagems and ruses, many still feasible today, than those of any other commander in history, that they are an unfailing object lesson to soldiers. You think many footnotes could be seamlessly woven into the text rather than being a footnote? You still don't know what ibid means? Ibid simply means, that it's, so if you had, so for example, let's say you were referencing Plutarch, and you reference Plutarch, one of his works, whatever, I don't know. If you say ibid, what you're saying is that same reference. So that same reference right above is what you're saying. Why they don't just include Plutarch is probably saving on text. It's probably saving, like, it's probably one of those things that just kind of happened and they're like, oh, let's keep it because it's fancy looking. But that's what it means. Strategically, Scipio is still more modern. The present is at a time of disillusionment, when we are realizing that slaughter is not synonymous with victory, that the destruction of the enemy's main armed forces on the battlefield is at best but a means to an end, and not an end in itself, as the pure-blind apostles of Clausewitz have deceived themselves, and the world, unhappily. In the future, even more than in the past, the need is to study and understand the interplay of the military, economic, and political forces, which are inseparable in strategy. Because Scipio, more than any other great captain, understood and combined these forces in his strategy, despite the very modern handicap of being the servant of a republic, not, like Alexander, Frederick, Napoleon, a despot. The study of his life is peculiarly apposite today, above all because the moral objective of the aim of his plans, whether political, strategical, or tactical, the moral objective was the aim of his plans, whether political, strategical, or tactical. Clausewitz mentioned. Clever's like, yeah. My grateful thanks are due to Sir Geoffrey Butler. Okay, that's just a long list of thanks. But let's get into the contents. It's always Plutarch. Livy pops up sometimes too. Introduction. And you guys see what I mean? I don't know if you guys are getting it from my reading, but I just like the way he pens. It's quite nice. And what I'm seeing here, actually, just to tie again back to that book about King Philip II of Macedon, very similar ideas as the person who wrote that book. Who wrote that again? Hang on. I can't see. I can't see down. It's too dark. But again, he stressed the importance that Philip placed on the political ends of war. That defeating your enemy on the battlefield was not just the be all and end all. It was a means to an end, and he emphasized regularly. If you guys listen to that or remember, how important that was to Philip. Introduction: The road to failure. The road to failure is the road to fame. Such apparently must be the verdict of prosperity's estimate of the world's greatest figures. The flash of the meteor impresses the human imagination more than the remoter splendor of the star, fixed immutably in the high heavens. Is it that final swoop earthwards, the unearthly radiance ending in the common dust, that by its evidence of the tangible or the finite gives to the meteor a more human appeal? So with the luminaries of the human system, provided that the ultimate fall has a dramatic note, the memory of spectacular failure eclipses that of enduring success. Again, it may be that the completeness of his course lends individual emphasis to the great failure, throwing his work into clearer relief, whereas the man whose efforts are crowned with permanent success builds a stepping stone by which others may advance still farther, and so merges his own fame in that of his successors. The theory, at least, finds ample confirmation in the realm of action. A Napoleon or a Lee, he's talking about General... Oh, what was his first name again? General Lee. The Confederate leader in the American Civil War. A Napoleon or a Lee are enshrined in drama, in novel. Robert Lee, that's it, Robert Lee. No, not Oliver Lee. Robert Lee. A Napoleon and a Lee are enshrined in drama, in novel and in memoir by the hundred. A Wellington and a Grant are almost forgotten by the writers of the nations they brought through peril intact and victorious. Even a Lincoln may only have been saved from comparative oblivion by the bullet of an assassin, a Nelson by the death in the hour of victory, which relieved by emotion awakening tragedy to this disrepute of a successful end. It would seem likely that a century hence the name of Ludendorff will be emblazoned on the heroic figure of the European war, while that of Foch sinks into obscurity. There are signs already of this tendency to exalt the defeated. For permanence of reputation, a man of action must appeal to emotion, not merely to the mind, and since the living man himself no longer can kindle the emotions of posterity, the dramatic human touch of ultimate failures is essential. This truth would seem to hold in most branches of human effort. Scott's gallant but unavailing attempt to reach the South Pole lives in the world's memories, while the successful ventures of Amundsen and Perry are fading. In sport, Dorando's marathon is an enduring memory, but who among the general public could recall the name of Hayes, the actual victor, or indeed that of any subsequent marathon winner? For this irrational, this sentimental verdict, it is fashionable to fix the blame on modern journalism. Yet the barest survey of history shows that its origins lie far back in the mists of time. On the historian, in fact, who of all men should be trying and outlook, who of all men should by training and outlook put his trust in reason, falls a major responsibility for this eternal tendency, the glorification of dramatic failure at the expense of enduring achievement. The history of the ancient confirms that the modern world, and in no example more strikingly than that of Scipio Africanus, the subject of this brief study, which is an attempt to redress the historical balance by throwing further weights of knowledge and military appreciation on Scipio's side, not as commonly by detraction from his rivals. Gradually, progressively, the belittlement of Scipio has been pressed by historians anxious to enhance the fame of Hannibal. And this is Hannibal Barca, the great Carthaginian general, who, probably more than anyone, and I'm sure Son probably felt it in his bones hearing the name of Hannibal, brought fear to the Romans. Except maybe the Gauls. The Gauls were kind of they did sack Rome. It is more unreasonable, the less excusable, because here there are no mass of conflicting sources and contemporary opinions. The reliable data on which to base a study and a judgment are practically limited to the works of Polybius and Livy, with but a few grains from other and admittedly less trustworthy ancient authorities. And of these two, Polybius, the earlier, is almost contemporary with events. The friend of Gaius Laelius, Scipio's constant subordinate, from whom he could get first-hand evidence and judgments. He had the family archives of the Scipios at his disposal for research, and he had been over the actual battlefields while many of the combatants were still alive. Thus he gained an almost unique base upon which to form his estimate. 8 Gauls, 8 Carthage, 8 guts, just don't like 'em simple as. Come on, Rome, secure some fucking lands. What about the Visigoths? Is that in this part of the history too? No, I think the Visigoths come like in the 400s, 500s, don't they? Well, I'm sure they're kind of totting around, but I think they mainly come in with the with the Ostrogoths and the other barbarian hordes. Come on, England, recover some some eagle standards. I knew you were trying to be Rome. I know you were trying to be Rome, but it's too easy to say, come on, England. Further, being a Greek, his views are less suspect than those of Livy of being coloured by Roman patriotic bias, while modern historical criticism is unanimous in its tribute alike to his impartiality, his thoroughness of research, and the soundness of his critical insight. The verdict of Polybius is clear, and his facts still more so. That there were divergent judgments of Scipio among the Romans of succeeding generations is true, but Polybius explains the reason so convincingly. Their truth, born out of the known facts of Scipio's strategical and tactical plans, that there is no vestige of excuse for modern writers to regard as due to luck what superstition led the ancients to ascribe to divine aid. Quote, the fact that he was almost the most famous man of all time makes everyone desirous to know what sort of man he was, and what were the natural gifts and the training which enabled him to accomplish so many great actions. But none can help falling into error and acquiring a mistaken impression of him, as the estimate of those who have given us their views about him is very wide of the truth. Another quote, they represent him as a man favoured by fortune, such men being, in their opinion, more divine and more worthy of admiration than those who always act by calculation. They are not aware that the one deserves praise, and the other only congratulation, being common to ordinary men, whereas what is praiseworthy belongs only to men of sound judgment and mental ability, whom we should consider to be the most divine and most beloved of the gods. To me it seems that the character and principles of Scipio much resemble those of Lycurgus, the Lacedaemonian legislator. For neither must we suppose that Lycurgus drew up the constitution of Sparta under the influence of superstition and solely prompted by Pythia, nor that Scipio won such an empire for his country by following the suggestion of dreams and omens. But since both of them saw that most men neither readily accept anything unfamiliar to them, nor venture on great risks without the hope of divine help, Lycurgus made his own scheme more acceptable and more easily believed in by invoking the oracles of Pythia in support of projects due to himself, while Scipio similarly made the men under his command more sanguine and more ready to face perilous enterprises by instilling into them the belief that his projects were divinely inspired, but that he invariably acted on calculation and foresight, and that the successful issue of his plans was always in accord with rational expectation will be evident. To the mind of today, not only does... Oh, that's the end of that quote. To the mind of today, not only does such an explanation appear inherently probable, but affords a key to the understanding of a man whose triumphs, whether military, political, or diplomatic, were above all due to his supreme insight into the psychology of men. Based Lycurgus mentioned. So it mentioned in the text, but like Kyrgyz was the person who gave Sparta their constitution. And back before the whole 300 Battle of Marathon and all that stuff happened. He was the guy who kind of set it all in motion. He's their kind of mythological founder, in a sense. Who, moreover, applied this gift like the conductor of a great orchestra to the production of a world harmony. In conducting policy through war to peace, he indeed attained a concord which aptly fulfilled the musical definition. Quote, a combination which both by its smoothness and by its logical origin and purpose in the scheme can form a point of repose. Unquote. As a conductor of the human orchestra, he had, however, two weaknesses, one inborn and one developing with years. He could not comprehend the low notes, the narrowness and the baseness to which men can descend, and the exaltation of spirit born of his power over men prevented him from hearing the first warnings of that discord which was to impair the glorious symphony so nearly completed. That's the end of the introduction, and now we get into chapter 1. Isn't this really nicely written? I'm just gonna say, I just have to say that again. Half-life, half-light. Polybius Cornelius Scipio was born at Rome in the 517th year from the city's foundation, 235 BC. Ruadh gushing over prose. It's good. Though a member of one of the most illustrious and ancient families, the Cornelii, of his early years and education no record, not even an anecdote, has come down to us. Indeed, not until he is chosen, through a combination of circumstances and his own initiative, to command the army in Spain at the age of 24, does history give us more than the occasional fleeting glimpse at his progress. Yet, bare and brief as these are, each is significant. The first is at the Battle of The first is at the Battle of Ticnius, Hannibal's initial encounter with the Roman arms on Italian soil, after his famous passage on the Alps. I apologize if I do butcher some of the pronunciations. Here the youthful Scipio, a lad of 17, accompanied his father, the Roman commander. In his first experience of battle was on the losing side. If his first experience of battle was on the losing side, he at least emerged with enviable distinction. Let the story be told in Polybius's words. Quote, his father had placed him in command of a picked troop of horse, in reserve on a small hill, in order to ensure his safety. But when he caught sight of his father in the battle, surrounded by the enemy and escorted only by 2 or 3 horsemen and dangerously wounded, he at first endeavoured to urge those with him to go to the rescue, but when they hung back for a time owing to the large numbers of the enemies round them, he is said with reckless daring to have charged the encircling force alone. Upon the rest being now forced to attack, the enemy were terror-struck and broke up, and Polybius Scipio, thus unexpectedly rescued, was the first to salute his son as his deliverer. Unquote. It is said that the consul ordered a civic crown, the Roman VC, Victorian Cross is what he's saying there, to be presented to his son, who refused it, saying that, quote, the action was one that rewarded itself. He's probably right, it saved his father. The exploit does credit to the young Scipio's gallantry, but the outcome, as emphasized by Polybius, still does more credit to his philosophical insight. Quote, having by this service won a universally acknowledged reputation for bravery, he in subsequent times refrained from exposing his person without sufficient reason, when his country reposed her hopes of success on him, conduct characteristic not of a commander who relies on luck, but on one gifted with intelligence. I believe the civic crown was specifically for a Roman soldier who would save another Roman's life in whatever situation. I don't know if it was particularly as a soldier, but if you saved a Roman's life, you would get rewarded the civic crown. There's a really, really great game actually called hang on, I can actually look it up very quickly. It's a very nice little game. Not too complex. I might play it sometime. Okay, Steam is deciding that doesn't want to be helpful. That's fine. A Legionary's Life, that's what it's called. A legionary's life. It's a very, very fun little game. You play as someone actually fighting through the Spanish campaign, the Carthage campaign, and then the later battle against Philip IV of Macedon, when the Greeks effectively take over Rome, or when the Romans take over Greece. I got that one very mixed up. I believe the last battle you fight is the Battle of Kainokephale. To the present generation with personal experience of war, the point may have greater force than to the closeted historians. To the former, the higher commander who aspires to be a platoon leader, thrusting himself into the fight at the expense of his proper duty of direction, is not the heroic or inspired figure that he appears to the civilian. To some, too, not natural lovers of danger for its own sake, and these are rare in any army, the point will touch a chord of memory, reminding them of how, by the moral hold of their men given by one such exploit, they were thereafter enabled to take the personal precautions which better befit the officer entrusted with the lives of others. The civilian at home poured scorn on the German officer, quote, leading his men from behind. Not so the fighting soldier, for he knew that when the occasion called, his officer enemy did not hesitate to risk, nay, throw away his life as an example. The story still lives on the German officer who led a forlorn hope mounted on a white horse. I don't recognize that one at all, so maybe some of you do. It'd be cool if we could learn what that one was. It's an old book, so 1923, so I'm not surprised that maybe there's some things that were very common back then, and also it's probably a very learned writer, so he's going to be mentioning a lot of little things. The exploit and the popular fame it brought launched Scipio's military career so auspiciously as to earn him rapid advancement. For less than 2 years later, 216 BC, Livy's account speaks of him as one of the military tribunes, from whom the commanders of the legion were nominated, and in itself a post that made him one of the deputies or staff officers of the legion commander. If a parallel is desired, the nearest modern equivalent, is a staff colonel. Hello, Squire. I'm not a squire, what are you talking about? But hello, Manticore. I hope you are enjoying having a good week. Good start to your week. We're just doing a little bit of reading. The second glimpse of Scipio comes on the morrow of Cannae. That's a little bit embarrassing. Cannae is a Niji Sanji VTuber, probably the second the most popular male VTuber, I think. And thank you for the head pat. Thank you. Cannae is a completely different thing. Morrow of Cannae, Rome's darkest hour. Oh, thank you so much, Apoxira. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in. Rome's darkest hour. And it is curious that the future general, who like Marlborough, was never to fight a battle that he did not win, should in his subordinate days have been witness of unrelieved disaster. There is no record of Scipio's share in the battle, but from Livy's account it seems clear that he was among the 10,000 survivors who escaped to the greater Roman camp across the river Aufidus, and further, one of the undaunted 4,000 who, rather than surrender with their fellows, quitted the camp after nightfall, and eluding the Carthaginian horse, made their way to Canusium. Their situation was still perilous, for this place lay only some 4 miles distance, and why Hannibal did not follow up his success by the destruction of this remnant, isolated from succor, remains one of the enigmas of history. Hello, Apoxria. Thank you so much for the first time chat, too. And you redeemed name pronunciation. No worries, my name is a little bit difficult to pronounce, I must admit. It is Ruadh. Ruadh. So thank you so much for joining. And hello, Lancelot. Welcome in. We're reading all about Scipio Africanus in a very nicely well-written book. So I hope you guys enjoy. remains one of the enigmas of history. To all appearances, a blemish on his generalship. Thank you so much for the head pat too. You hope you won't forget. Don't worry, people forget all the time. I'm often called Ruadh or Ruadh. Loads of different pronunciations, so don't worry. While the 4,000 at Canusium were 4 military tribunes, and, as Livy tells us, quote, by the consent of all the supreme command was vested in Polybius Scipio, then a very young man, and a pious Claudius. Once more Scipio shines amidst the darkness of defeat. Once more, a time of general disasters, the opportunity of youth backed by character. Disruption, if not mutiny, threatens. Word is brought that men are saying that Rome is doomed, and that certain of the younger patricians, headed by Lucius Caecilius Metellus, are proposing to leave Rome to its fate and escape overseas to seek service with some foreign king. These fresh tidings of ill fortune dismay, and almost paralyze the assembled leaders. But while the others urge that a council be called to deliberate upon the situation, Scipio acts. He declares that it is not a proper subject for deliberation, that courage and action and not deliberation were necessary in such a calamity, that those who desired the safety of the state would attend him in arms forthwith, that in no place was the camp of the enemy more truly than where such designs were meditated. Then, with only a few companions, he goes straight to the lodging of Metellus, surprising the plotters in council. Drawing his sword, Scipio proclaims his purpose, quote, I swear that I will neither desert the cause of Rome, nor allow any other citizen of Rome to desert it. If knowingly I violate this oath, may Jupiter visit with the most horrible predation my house, my family, and my fortune. I insisted that you, Lucius Caecilius, and the rest of you present take this oath, and that the men who demurs be assured that this sword is drawn against him. The upshot is that, quote, terrified as though they were beholding the victorious Hannibal, they all take the oath, and surrender themselves to Scipio to be kept in custody. This danger quelled, Scipio and Appius, hearing that Varro, the surviving consul, had reached Venusia, sent a messenger there, placing themselves under his orders. Scipio's next brief entry on the stage of history is a different scene. His elder brother, Lucius, was a candidate for aedileship. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize, son. Aedileship. And actually, he does have a little note. A good note. It explains what the term is. The aedileship was normally the first rung on the ladder to higher magistracy. Its functions were those of a civic home office, the care of the city and the enforcement of the bylaws, the supervision of the markets and of prices and measures, and the superintendence and organization of the public games. And the younger Publius, quote, for long did not venture to stand for the same office as his brother. But on the approach of the election, judging from the disposition of the people that his brother had a poor chance of being elected, and seeing that he himself was exceedingly popular, he came to the conclusion that the only means by which his brother would attain his object would be by their coming to an agreement, and both of them making the attempt, and so he hit on the following plan. Seeing that his mother was visiting the different temples and sacrificing to the gods on behalf of his brother, and generally showing great concern about the result, he told her, as a fact, that he had twice had the same dream. He had dreamt that both he and his brother had been elected to the aedileship, and were going up from the forum to their house when she met them at the door and fell on their necks and kissed them. She was affected by this, as a woman would be, and exclaimed, quote, would I might see that day, or something similar. Then would you like us to try, mother? He said, upon her consenting, as she never dreamt he would venture on it, but thought it was merely a casual joke, for he was exceedingly young. He begged her to get a white toga ready for him at once, this being the dress that candidates are in the habit of wearing. What she had said had entirely gone out of her head, and Scipio, waiting until he received the white toga, appeared in the forum while his mother was asleep. The people, owing to the unexpectedness of the sight, and owing to his previous popularity, received him with enthusiastic surprise. And afterwards, when he went on to the station appointed for candidates and stood by his brother, they not only conferred the office on Publius, but on his brother too for his sake, and both appeared at their home elected aediles. When the news suddenly reached her mother's ears, she, overjoyed, met them at the door and embraced the young men with deep emotion, so that from this circumstance all who had heard of the dreams believed that Publius communed with the gods, not only in his sleep, but still more in reality and by day. Now it was not a matter of a dream at all. Quote. Now it was not a matter of a dream at all, but as he was kind, munificent, and agreeable in his address, he reckoned on his popularity with the people, and so by cleverly adapting his action to the actual sentiment of the people and of his mother, he not only attained his object, but was believed to have acted under a sort of divine inspiration. For those who are incapable of taking an accurate view of opportunities, causes, and dispositions, attribute to the gods and to the fortune of the causes of what is accomplished by shrewdness and with calculation and foresight. To some the deception, unquote, even though for a worthy end, may seem out of tune with the higher Roman virtues, and Livy, to whom as a Roman the artifice would appear less admirable than to Polybius, a Greek, leaves in doubt the origin of this habit of Scipio's, developed in his after career either by reason of its success or practice. Here is Livy's appreciation. Quote, Scipio was undoubtedly the possessor of striking gifts, but beside that he had from childhood studied the art of their effective display, whether there was some vein of superstition in his own temperament, or whether it was with the aim of securing for his commands the authority of inspired utterances. He rarely spoke in public without pretending to some nocturnal vision or supernatural suggestion. Livy may exaggerate the frequency, for he wrote at a later date, and legends grow around the characteristics of the great. Such supernatural claims only appear occasionally in Scipio's recorded utterances, and he, a supreme artist in handling human nature, would realize the value of reserving them for critical moments. Livy continues, in order to impress public opinion in this direction, he had made a practice from the day he reached manhood of never engaging in any business, public or private, without first paying a visit to the capital. There he would enter the sanctuary and pass some time, generally in solitude and seclusion. This habit made converts to a belief, to which accident or design had given wide currency, that his origin was other than human. There was a story once believed about Alexander the Great, that his male parent had been a huge serpent, often seen in his mother's chamber, but vanishing directly men appeared. This miracle was told again of Scipio, but he himself never cast ridicule upon it. Indeed, he rather lent it countenance, by the course which he adopted of neither wholly disclaiming such tales, nor openly asserting their truth. This last tale, incidentally, is repeated by several of the ancient writers and enshrined in Paradise Lost, where Milton writes, quote, He with Olympias, this with her that bore Scipio the height of Rome, and Olympias being the mother of Alexander. Wait, is that right? Yeah. The view that this claim to divine inspiration had a religious and not merely an intellectual basis gained some support from Scipio's conduct in the Syrian War of 190 BC, when, because he was a member of the College of the Priests of Mars, known as Salian priests, he stayed behind the army, and indirectly kept it waiting at the Hellespont, as a rule bound him to stay where he was until the month ended. Again, modern psychologists may suggest that his dreams were true and not invented. Such is known to be the power of strong desire to fulfill itself in dreams. Whatever the explanation and the source of his visions, there can be no doubt as to the skill with which he turned to them to practical account. And it is a supreme moral tribute to Scipio that this power was exerted by him purely to further his country's good, never his own. When trouble and accusation came in later days, and an ungrateful state forgot its saviour, Scipio did not invoke any divine vision in his defence. That he so refrained is the most definite and most significant, because, with other psychological means, he showed himself the supreme organist of the human instrument. Scipio's election to the aedileship is historically important, not only because it illuminates the sources of his success and influence over men, but also for its light of the causes of his political decline, the self-imposed exile from an ungrateful country, which saw a marvellously brilliant career close in shadow. It is Livy who shows that his election was not so unopposed as Polybius's account would suggest, that the tribunes of the people opposed his pretensions to the office because he had not attained the legal age for candidature, whereupon Scipio retorted that, if the citizens in general are desirous of appointing the aedile, I am old enough. An appeal over the heads of the tribunes which was instantly successful, but which by its triumphant defiance of tradition and rule was likely to add resentment to the jealousy which inevitably accompanies the precocious success of youth. Chapter 2. Dawn. These 3 episodes from the prologue to the real drama of Scipio's career. On this the curtain rises in 210 BC, which, if not Rome's blackest hour in her life and the death struggle with Carthage, was at least the greyest. That conflict, which she had entered upon originally in 264 BC, was the inevitable sequence of the supremacy of the Italian peninsula won by her combination of political genius and military vigour, for this supremacy could never be secure for as long as an alien sea power, Carthage, commanded the waters of the peninsula, a continual menace to its seaboard and commerce. But when, after many hazards, the close of the First Punic War in 241 BC yielded Rome this maritime security, the vision and ambition of Hamilcar Barca not merely revived, but widened the scope of the struggle between Rome and Carthage into one with world power or downfall at the stakes. During the long interval of outward peace, the Carthaginian Bismarck prepared the mental and material means for a stroke at the heart of the Roman power, educating his sons and followers to conceive the conquest of Rome as their goal, and using Spain as a training ground for the Barcine school of war, as well as the base of their forthcoming military effort. In 218 BC, Hannibal, crossing the Alps, began his invasion of Italy, to reap the harvest for which his father had sown the seeds. His victories on the Ticinus, the Trebia, at the Trasimene Lake grew in scale until they reached their apex at the battlefield of Cannae. If Roman fortitude, the loyalty of most of the Italian allies, and Hannibal's strategic caution then gained for Rome a reprieve, the passage of 5 years' unceasing warfare so drained her resources and exhausted her allies that by 211 BC, Roman power, internally if not superficially, was perhaps nearer than ever before to a breakdown. A machine that is new and in good condition can withstand repeated severe shocks, but when badly worn, a jar may suffice to cause its collapse. Such a jar came, for while Hannibal was campaigning in southern Italy, destroying Roman armies if apparently drawing no nearer to his object, the destruction of the Roman power, the Carthaginian arms in Spain had been crowned with a victory that threatened Rome's footholding on the peninsula. For several years, Scipio's father and uncle, Polybius the Elder and Gnaeus, had been in command of the Roman forces there, winning repeated successes until, caught divided, the 2 brothers were defeated in turn, both falling on the battlefield. The shattered remnants of the Roman forces were driven north of the Ebro, and only a gallant rally by Marcius prevented the Romans from being driven out of Spain. Even so, their situation was precarious, for many of the Spanish tribes had forsaken the Romans in their hour of adversity. Though the determination of Rome itself, as before, was unbroken, and a disaster only spurred her to retrieve it, the choice of a successor proved difficult. Finally, it was decided to call on an assembly of the people to elect a proconsul for Spain, but no candidates offered themselves for that dangerous honour. Quote, The people at their wits' end came down to the Campus Martius on that day of the election, where, turning towards the magistrate, they looked round at the countenances of their most eminent men, who were earnestly gazing at each other, and murmured bitterly that their affairs were in so... sorry. And murmured bitterly that their affairs were in so ruinous a state, and the condition of the Commonwealth so desperate, that no one dared to take the command in Spain. When suddenly Publius Cornelius, son of Publius, who had fallen in Spain, who was about 24 years of age, declared himself a candidate, and took his station on an eminence by which he could be seen by all. That was from Livy. His election was unanimous, not only by every century, but by every man there present. But after the business had been concluded, and the ardour and impetuosity of their zeal had subsided, a sudden silence ensued, and a secret reflection on what they had done, whether their partiality had not got the better of their judgment. They chiefly regretted his youth, but some were terrified at the fortune which attended his house and his name. For while the two families to which he belonged were in mourning, he was going into a province where he must carry out his operations amid the tombs of his father and his uncle. Realizing the prevalence of those second thoughts, these doubts, Scipio sought to offset them by summoning an assembly, at which his sagacious arguments did much to restore confidence. The secret of his sway, extraordinary in one so young, over the crowd mind, especially in times of crisis, was his profound self-confidence, which radiated an influence to which the stories of his divine inspiration were but auxiliary. Such confidence is a term often used in a derogatory sense, but Scipio's was not only justified by results, but essentially different, a spiritual exaltation which is apomatized by Aulus Gellius as consentia subnixus, or, in English, lifted high on his consciousness of himself. To the remains of the army in Spain, 10,000 foot and 1,000 horses were added, and taking these reinforcements, Scipio set sail with a fleet of 30 quinqueremes. For those of you who don't know, a trireme was a three-tiered rowing ship that was very common in Greece. By this time, they have quinqueremes, which are basically five-man rowing boats. And hello, Witty. Thank you for the lurk. I hope you're having a nice week. Thank you for showing up. With a fleet of 30 quinqueremes from the mouth of the Tiber, coasting along the Gulf of Genoa, the Riviera shore, and the Gulf of Lyons, he landed his troops just inside the Spanish frontier, and then marched overland to Taraco, or modern Tarragona. Here he received embassies from the various Spanish allies. His appreciation of the moral factor and of the value of his personal observation, two vital elements in his generalship, was shown in his earliest of steps. The rival forces were in winter quarters, and before attempting to formulate any plan, he visited the states of his allies in every one of the various parts of his army, seeking always by his attitude, even more than by his words, to rekindle confidence and dissipate the influence of past defeat. His own moral stature could not be better shown than by his treatment of Marcius, the man who had partly retrieved the Roman disasters, and thus one whom an ambitious general might well regard as a rival to his own position and fame. But, quote, Marcius he kept with him, and treated him with such respect that it was perfectly clear that there was nothing he feared less than lest any one should stand in the way of his own glory. Napoleon's jealousy of Moreau, his deliberate overshadowing of his own marshals, is in marked contrast with Scipio's attitude, and one of the finest of military tributes to him is the abiding affection felt for him by his subordinate generals. Quote, no man is a hero to his valet, but a few generals are heroes to their chief staff officers, who see them intimately in their nude qualities beneath the trappings of authority and public reputation. Loyal subordinates will maintain the fiction of infallibility for the good of the army, and so long as is necessary. But they know the man as he is, and in later years the truth leaks out. Thus it is worth remembering that the verdict of Polybius is founded on direct conversations with Gaius Laelius, Scipio's coadjutor, and the one man to whom he confided his military plans before operations. To the soldiers suffering under defeat he made no reproaches, but aptly mingled an appeal to their reason and to their spirit, reminding them how often in Roman history early defeat had been the presage to ultimate victory. How the sure tilting of the balance had already begun. The initial disasters found their counterpoise, and in Italy and Sicily everything was going prosperously. Then he pointed out that the Carthaginian victories were not due to superior courage, but, quote, to the treachery of the Celtiberians and the rashness, the generals having been cut off from each other owing to their trust in the alliance of that people. Next he showed how their disadvantages had shifted to the other side, the Carthaginian armies, quote, being encamped a long distance apart, unquote, their allies estranged by tactlessness and tyranny, and above all, personal ill-feeling between the enemy's commanders, would make them slow to come to each other's assistance. Finally, he kindled their enthusiasm by touching their affection for their lost leaders. Quote, I will soon bring it to pass that, as you can now trace in me a likeness to my father and uncle in my features, countenance and figure, I will so restore a copy of their genius, honour, and courage, that every man of you shall say that his commander, Scipio, has either returned to life or has been born again. His first step was to restore and fortify the confidence of his own troops and allies. His next was to attack that of his enemies, to strike not their flesh but their moral Achilles' heel. His acute strategical insight, in a day when strategy as distinct from battle tactics had hardly been born, made him realize that Spain was the real key to the whole struggle. Spain was Hannibal's real base of operations. There he had trained his armies, and thence he looked for his reinforcements. Scipio's first move was to apply his appreciation of the moral objective within the Spanish theatre of war. While the others urged him to attack one of the Carthaginian armies, he decided to strike at their base, their lifeline. First, he concentrated all his troops at one place, leaving one small but compact detachment of 3,000 foot and 300 horse under Marcus Silanus to secure his own essential pivot of operations, Tarraco. Then, with all the rest, 25,000 foot and 2,500 horse, here was the true economy of force, he crossed the Ebro, quote, revealing his plan to no one. The fact that he had decided not to do any of the things he had publicly announced, but to invest suddenly. New Carthage, modern Cartagena. New Carthage was a colony of Carthage on the east coast, I think eastern southern coast of Spain, and obviously it's kind of their main city, their main region. New Carthage, modern Cartagena. To this end he gave secret orders to Gaius Laelius, who commanded the fleet, who alone was aware of the project, to sail to that place, while he himself with his land forces marched rapidly against it. As Polybius sagely emphasizes, calculation marked this youth, for, quote, he in the first place took in hand a situation pronounced by most people as desperate, and secondly, in dealing with it, he put aside the measures obvious to anyone, and planned out and decided on a course which neither his enemies nor his friends expected. On his arrival in Spain, he inquired from everyone about the circumstances of the enemy, and learnt that the Carthaginians were divided into 3 bodies. Mago, near the pillars of Hercules, in Gibraltar. Hasdrubal, son of Gisco, and I believe Hasdrubal is the brother of Hannibal. Hasdrubal, son of Gisco, near the mount of the Tagus, and there's 2 people called Hasdrubal apparently, and Hasdrubal Barca, besieging a city in central Spain not far from modern Madrid. None of them were within less than 10 days' march from New Carthage. He himself, as the event proved, was within 7 days' forced marches of it. The news of his attack must take several days to reach them, and if he could take it by a surprise coup de main, he would forestall any aid, and, quote, in the event of failure he could, since he was master of the sea, place his troops in a position of safety. Polybius further tells us how during the winter he made detailed inquiries from people acquainted with it. He learned that it stood almost alone among Spanish cities in possessing harbours fit for a fleet and for naval forces, and also that it was for the Carthaginians, the direct sea crossing from Africa. So in kind of a similar way in that the Athenians were the major sea power during the Peloponnesian War, the Carthaginians were very much the major sea power of Rome's time, kind of in the 250s BC, during the First Punic War. And even still during the Second Punic War, they're still pretty dangerous, but obviously they're beating the shit out of the Romans on land. Let me just grab my bottle of water, 2 seconds. There we go. Ugh. It's okay, it will soon be called Mare Nostrum. Rome #1. Refreshing. Next, he heard that the Carthaginians kept the bulk of their money and their war material in the city, as well as their hostages from the whole of Spain. And what was of most importance, the trained soldiers who garrisoned the citadel were only about 1,000 strong, because no one dreamt that while the Carthaginians were masters of nearly the whole of Spain, it would enter anyone's head to besiege the city, while the remaining population was exceedingly large, but composed of artisans, tradesmen, and sailors, men very far from having any military experience. This he considered to be a thing that would tell against the city if he appeared suddenly before it. The moral calculation, again. Quote, abandoning, therefore, all other projects, he spent his time while in winter quarters preparing for this, but he concealed the plan from everyone except Gaius Laelius. The account shows that he was a master of 2 more attributes of generalship: the power to keep his intentions secret until their disclosure was necessary for the execution of the plan, and the wisdom to realize that military success depends largely on the thoroughness of the previous preparation. Polybius's assertion that Scipio's move was due to masterly calculation and not to inspiration or fortune is confirmed indirectly by a reference to a letter of Scipio's, which he had seen, and directly by Livy's quotation of Scipio's speech to the troops before the battle. One phrase epitomizes the strategic idea. You will in actuality attack the walls of a single city, but in that single city you will have made yourselves masters of all Spain. And he explains exactly how capture of the hostages, the treasures, and the war stores will be turned to their advantage, and they react to the enemy's disadvantage, moral, economic, and material. Even if Livy's phrase was coined to meet Scipio's fact, its note is so exactly in accord with Scipio's actions as to give a ring of truth, of basic truth. So I imagine it's probably quite similar to the way Thucydides wrote his, or Thucydides actually. I believe at that time it would have been a hard C, so it would be Thucydides. Did it in the history of the Peloponnesian War, where he often wrote the speeches, but he gave pretty much what he believed would have been said, or what he heard was said by those he spoke to. Chapter 3. The Storm of Cartagena. On the 7th day from the start of the march, Scipio arrived before the city and encamped, the fleet arriving simultaneously in the harbour, thus cutting off communication on all sides. This harbour formed a circular bottle, its mount almost corked by an island, while Cartagena itself was like a candle stuck in the bottom of the bottle, the city standing on a narrow rocky spit of land protruding from the mainland. This small peninsula bore a distinct resemblance to Gibraltar, and the isthmus joining it to the mainland was only some 400 yards across. The city was guarded on two sides by the sea, and on the west by a lagoon. Here was a hard nut to crack, seemingly impregnable to any action save a blockade, and this time prevented. Scipio's first step was to ensure his tactical security by defending the outer side of his camp with a palisade and a double trench stretching from sea to sea. On the inner side, facing the isthmus, he erected no defences, partly because the nature of the ground gave protection, and partly in order not to hinder the free movement of his assaulting troops. The Carthaginian commander, Mago, to oppose him armed 2,000 of the sturdiest citizens, and posted them by the landward gate for a sortie. No, not sortie, sortie. So, I think that's how you pronounce it. The rest he distributed to defend the walls to the best of their power, while of his own regulars he disposed 500 in the citadel on the top of the peninsula, and 500 on the eastern hill. Next day, Scipio encircled the city with ships, throwing a constant stream of missiles in about the third hour. Oh, here's a little note here. The Roman day began at sunrise. So the third hour of sunrise. Sent forward along the isthmus 2,000 picked men, with the ladder bearers for its narrowness prevented a stronger force being deployed. Appreciating the handicap of their cramped position if counterattacked by the yet unshaken defenders, he astutely designed to turn this handicap to his own advantage. The exposed sortie came as soon as Scipio sounded the bugle for assault, and a close matched struggle ensued. But, quote, as the assistance sent to either side was not equal, the Carthaginians arriving through a single gate and from a longer distance, the Romans from close by and from several points, the battle for this reason was an unequal one, for Scipio had purposely posted his men close to the ramp itself, in order to entice the enemy as far out as possible. Livy says that the Roman advanced troops retired according to orders on their reserves, well knowing that if he destroyed those who were, so to speak, the steel edge of the population, he would cause universal dejection, and none of those inside would venture out of the gates again. This last point was essential for the freedom of his decisive move. It makes sense. How can you tell the time on a sundial without the sun? Excuse me, I'm taking another sip. By the skillful infusion of successive reserves into the combat, the Carthaginian onslaught was first stemmed and then driven back in disorder, the pursuit being pressed so promptly that the Romans nearly succeeded in forcing an entrance on the heels of the fugitives. Even as it was, the scaling ladders were able to be put up in full security, but the great height of the walls hampered the escalators, and the assault was beaten off. Polybius gives a picture of the Roman commander during this phase, which reveals how he combined personal influence and control with the duty of avoiding rash exposure. Quote, Scipio took part in the battle, but studied his safety as far as possible. For he had with him 3 men carrying large shields, who, holding these close, covered the surface exposed to the wall, and so afforded him protection. Thus he could both see what was going on and be seen by all his men he inspired, the combatants of great spirit. The consequence was that nothing was omitted which was necessary in the engagement, but the moment that circumstances suggest any step to him, he set to work at once to do what was necessary. In modern war, no feature has told, and remember, for this guy, modern war is 1923 when this book was written. 1914, 1918. So, massive changes in war. The arrival of tanks, basically. In modern war, no feature has has told more heavily against decisive results than the absence of the commander's personal observation and control. Scipio's method, viewed in the light of modern science, may suggest a way to revive this influence. Peradventure, the commander of the future will go aloft in an aeroplane, protected by a patrol of fighters, and in communication by wireless telephony with his staff. Telephony. Cute. Scipio had achieved his first objective of wearing down the defenders and checking the likelihood of further interference with his plans for Carthaginian sorties. The way was thus paved for his next decisive move. To develop this, he was only waiting for the ebb of the tide, and this design had been conceived by him long since at Taraco, where, from inquiries among fishermen who knew Cartagena, he had learnt that at low water the lagoon was fordable. For this project he assembled 500 men with ladders on the shore of the lagoon, and meanwhile reinforced his forces in the isthmus, where boatmen and ladders, enough to ensure that in the next direct assault, the whole extent of the wall should be covered with escalators. An early example of the modern tactical axiom that a fixing attack should be on the broadest possible front in order to occupy the enemy's attention and prevent him turning to meet the decisive blow elsewhere. He launched his assault simultaneously with a landing attack by the fleet. When it was at its height, the tide began to ebb, and the water gradually receded from the edge of the lagoon, a strong and deep current setting in through the channel to the neighbourhood, so that those who were not prepared for the sight of the thing appeared incredible. But Scipio had his guides ready, and bade all the men told off for this service enter the water and have no fear. He indeed possessed a particular talent for inspiring confidence and sympathy in his troops when he called upon them. Now, when they obeyed and raced through the shallow water, it struck the whole army that it was the work of some god, and their courage was redoubled. Of this episode, and that was all by Polybius, of this episode Livy says, quote, Scipio, crediting this discovery due to his own diligence and penetration to the Gauls and to miracle, which had turned the course of the sea, withdrawn it from the lake and opened ways never before trodden by human feet to afford a passage to the Romans, ordered them to follow Neptune as their guide. But it is interesting to see that, while exploring the moral effect of this idea, he made practical use of less divine guides. The 500 passed without difficulty through the lagoon, reached the wall and mounted it without opposition, because all the defenders, quote, were engaged in bringing succour to that quarter in which the danger appeared. The Romans, having once taken the wall, at first marched along it, sweeping the enemy off it. They were clearly imbued with the principle that a penetration must be promptly widened before it is deepened, a principle which in the War of 1914 and 1918 was only learned after hard lessons at Lewes and elsewhere. Next they converged on the landward gate, already assailed in front, and taking the defenders in rear by surprise, overpowered the resistance and opened the way for the main body of the attackers. The walls thus captured, Scipio at once exploited his success. For while the mass of those who had by now scaled the walls set about the customary massacre of the townsmen, Scipio himself took care to keep in regular formation those who entered by the gate, and led them against the citadel. Here Mago, once he, quote, saw that the city had undoubtedly been captured, surrendered. If the massacre of the townspeople is revolting to modern ideas, it was a normal custom then, and for many centuries thereafter, and with the Romans was a deliberate policy aimed at the moral factor rather than mere insensate slaughter. The direct blow at the civilian population, who are at the seat of the hostile will, may indeed be revived by the potentialities of aircraft, which can jump hallam-wise over the armed men who form the shield of the enemy nation. Such a course, if militarily practical, is a logical one, and ruthless logic usually overcomes the humaner sentiments in a life and death struggle. So he's already talking about things that we would see very much, the bombing of London, the fire bombings of Dresden, the fire bombings of many of Japan's cities. Proof of the discipline of Scipio's troops is that the massacre ceased on a signal after the citadel surrendered, and only then did the troops begin pillaging. The massacre, however difficult for modern minds to excuse, was a military measure, and the conduct of the action was not impeded by the individual's desire to obtain loot or souvenirs, an undisciplined impulse which has affected even recent battles. The massacre, moreover, was partly offset by Scipio's generous, if diplomatic, conduct to the vanquished. Once the initial ruthlessness had achieved its purpose of quenching the citizens' will to resist, of the 10,000 male prisoners, he set free all who were citizens of New Carthage, and restored their property. The artisans, too, to the number of 2,000, he declared the property of Rome, but promised them their freedom when the war was over if, quote, they showed goodwill and industry in their several crafts. The pick of the remainder who were taken for sea service, thus enabling him to man the captured vessels and to increase the size of his fleet. These also were promised their freedom after the initial defeat of Carthage. Even to Mago and the other Carthaginian leaders he acted as became a chivalrous victor, ordering Laelius to pay them due attention until subsequently they were sent to Rome in the latter's charge, as a tangible evidence of victory which would revive the Roman spirits and lead them to redouble their efforts to support him. Finally, he won new allies for himself by his kindness to the Spanish hostages, for instead of retaining them in his custody as unwilling guarantees, he sent them home to their own states. So this would have been the Roman allies, the Roman states, and other people that the Carthaginians didn't get on well with. Two incidents related by both Livy and Polybius throw Scipio's character into relief and enhance his reputation as one of the most humane and far-sighted of the great conquerors. Quote, when one of the captured women, the wife of Mandonius, who was the brother of Andobales, king of the Irigetes, fell at his feet and entreated him with tears to treat them with more proper consideration than the Carthaginians had done, he was touched, and asked her what they stood in need of. Upon her making no reply, he sent for the officials appointed to attend on the woman. When they presented themselves and assured him that they kept the woman generously supplied with all they required, she repeated her entreaty, upon which Scipio was still more puzzled, and conceiving the idea that the officials were neglecting their duty and had now made a false statement, he bade the woman be of good cheer, saying that he himself would appoint other attendants, who would see to it that they were in want of nothing. The old lady, after some hesitation, said, General, you do not take me rightly if you think that our present petition is about our food. Scipio then understood what she meant, and noticing the youth and beauty of the daughters of Andobales and the other princes, he was forced to tears, recognizing in how few words she had pointed out to him the danger to which they were exposed. So now he made it clear to her that he understood, and grasping her hand bade her and the rest be of good cheer, for he would look after them as if they were his own sisters and children, and would appoint trustworthy men to attend on them. Polybius. The second incident, as told by Polybius, was, quote, some young Romans came across a girl of surpassing bloom and beauty, and being aware that Scipio was fond of women, brought her to him, saying that they wished to make a present of the damsel to him. He was overcome and astonished by her beauty, and he told them that had he not been in a private position, no present would have been more welcome, but as he was the general, it would be the least welcome of any. So he expressed his attitude to the young men, but called the girl's father, and handing her over to him, at once bade him give her in marriage to whomever of the citizens he preferred. The self-restraint and moderation of Scipio showed on this occasion, secured him the warm approbation of his troops. Livy's account enlarges the picture, saying that she was previously betrothed to a young chief of the Celtiberians named Alcaeus, who was desperately enamored of her. That Scipio, hearing this, sent for Alcaeus and presented her to him, and that when the parents pressed thank offerings upon him, he gave these to Alcaeus as a dowry from himself. This kindly and tactful act not only spread his praise through the Spanish tribes, but earned a more tangible reinforcement. For Alcaeus reappeared a few days later with 1,400 horsemen to join Scipio. With his own troops also, his blend of generosity and wisdom was no less noticeable. The booty was scrupulously divided according to the Roman custom, which ensured that all was pooled, and as he had so cleverly used every act to inspire them before, so now he appreciated the moral value of praise and distinctive reward for feats achieved. Better still was his haste to make the victory secure against any foreseen slip or enemy counterstroke. He had led back the legions to their entrenched camp on the same day as the city's capture, leaving Laelius with the marines to guard the city. Then, after 1 day's rest, he began a course of military exercises to keep the troops up to concert pitch. On the first day, the soldiers had to double 3.5 miles in their armor, and the legions carried out various drill movements. The second day, they had to polish up, repair, and examine their arms. The third day, they rested, and the fourth day, they carried out weapon training. Quote, some of them sword fighting with wooden sword covered with letters and with a button on the point, while others practiced javelin throwing, the javelins also having a button on the point. On the first day, they began the course again, and continued during their stay at Cartagena. The rowers and marines pushing out to sea when the weather was calm made trial of the maneuvers of their ships in mock sea fights. The general went round to all the works with equal attention. At one time he was employed in the dockyard with his fleet, at another he exercised with the legions. Sometimes he would devote himself to the inspection of the works, which every day were carried out with the greatest eagerness by the multitude of artificers, both in the workshops and in the armory and docks. Excuse me. Then, when the walls had been repaired, he left adequate detachments to hold the city, and set out for Tarico with the army and the fleet. In summing up this first brilliant exploit of command, the first tribute is due to the strategic vision and judgment shown in the choice of Cartagena as his objective. Those who exalt the main armed forces of the enemy as the primary objective are apt to lose sight of the fact that the destruction of these is only a means to an end, which is the subjugation of the hostile will. In many cases, this means is essential, the only safe one in fact, but in other cases the opportunity for a direct and secure blow at the enemy base may offer itself of its possibility and value of this masterstroke of Scipio's. Sorry, let me read that again. I read that awkwardly. In many cases, this means is essential, the only safe one in fact, but in other cases the opportunity for a direct and secure blow at the enemy's base may offer itself, and of its possibility and value this masterstroke of Scipio's is an example, which deserves a reflection of modern students of war. In the sphere of tactics there is a lesson in his consummate blending of the principles of surprise and security, first in the way he secured every offensive move from possible interference or mischance, second in the way he fixed the enemy before and during his decisive maneuver. To strike at the enemy who preserves his freedom of action is to risk hitting the air and being cut off one's balance. It is to gamble on chances, and the least mischance is liable to upset the whole plan. Yet how often in war, and even in peacetime maneuvers, have commanders initiated some superficially brilliant maneuver, only to find that the enemy have slipped away from the would-be knockout, because the assailant forgot the need of fixing. And the tactical formula of fixing plus decisive maneuver is, after all, but the domestic proverb, quote, first catch your hare, then cook it. Precept, however, is simpler than practice, and not least of Scipio's merits is his superb calculation of the time factor in his execution of the formulas. What time is it? We can still go. I might take a short break for my own voice and just kind of chill out for a bit. I'm really enjoying this. I'm really enjoying reading about this. There's actually a photo, or not a photo. They didn't have cameras back then, but there is a map here, which is pretty cool. Let me check real quickly just how long this next chapter is. Wait, what? The battle of, oh, okay. 1, 2. Oh no, I can check the contents. Photo, it was from me. First Hour went back in time and took it from my stream. Thank you so much, First Hour. That's very sweet of you. It was an interesting choice. It was very well calculated to have it be in a random book written in 1923 to know that I would read it on stream. But that was very cool of you. Where is it? 44 to 56. Yeah, I think that would probably be doable in a reasonable amount of time. So let me try and get that image. Okay, it's kind of hard to understand what's going on, I'm going to be honest. Don't want to show my hand. I'm not doing a hand cam stream. Hang on, let me... There we go. I hope you guys are enjoying this story of Scipio Africanus. I certainly am. And what it makes me want to do, especially, is to learn about Hannibal Barca too. To see learn more about Hannibal Barca. I know little bits. To learn more about the two enemies fighting against each other. What do I want to go to? Oh yes, that's what. Sorry, I'm just going to upload this very quickly. It's going to take not quickly, it takes a little bit. There we go. That one's probably better. Okay. Now I can go download it. Oh, when I was giving that presentation today, even though it was warm in the room anyway, but afterwards I felt like I had to go take a shower. And I'm a decent public speaker, I have to say. I can talk in front of a room fine. Well, I mean, depends on how many people are there, but most of these people are people I know and talk to. So it's relatively easier that way, obviously. But even still, afterwards, I was like, oh god, ugh. I always keep a thing of deodorant with me when I'm at work, just in case you need it. You never know when you might need to suddenly break into a run because you're caught in the rain or something, or maybe it's a particularly warm day or something like that happens where you sweat a lot. So I think it can be good. You have to do a speech. I had to do a presentation. You do as well, First Hour. Yeah, it's a good thing to do. And to be honest, if I didn't have it, I would still be very tempted to ask someone hey, can I borrow or do you have a thing? But I wouldn't. You used to use spray, but sprays suck. Sprays do mostly suck, I'll be honest. I do. There is this really, really good, I mean this, best thing ever that I've ever used, called Eau de Lancaster. Hang on, I'll type it. Where is it? I need text. I need to put it up. Hang on. Where's the text option? There it is. I'll just delete it in a moment. De Lancaster. It is, so this stuff is a deodorant cream. It's so good, genuinely. If you need just use it. Literally, even you could give this to the smelliest person alive. I think this would work. I don't know if it would work on Asmongold. Actually, I will retract that statement. But it's really good. Anyway, let me remove that. But I had to do a little presentation, about 15, 20 minutes, but it was fine. When you worked at the office, you'd usually reapply at lunch. I typically do the same as well, especially if I go for a big long walk, which I am apt to do at lunch. Um, because getting out for a walk is good. It's very good to stretch your legs, get out into the air. It can just get very, very claustrophobic sometimes in there. Yes, I'm trying to download something. Where did I... there it is. Come on, hurry up. There we go. So this is the image that we're going to get. Oh my god, I have so many tabs open. I have like 3 extra tabs because of this VTube model. Or 2, I suppose. Whoa, that's a big map. Oh. Oh, how do I... There we go. Oh, little Ruru is gonna have to be covered a little bit. Ooh, this is... I should have taken it closer. Okay, I can... I'll move myself, hang on. Let me move over here. There we go. Little bit difficult to see, but I will try my best to explain it when we get to it. Neat. I love maps. They're so cool. So how long is this chapter? No, it's not too bad at all. Excuse me. The Battle of Bekula. Or Besula, I'm not too sure. Maybe it's Spanish pronunciation. It's like Besula. Besula. With Cartagena in her grip, Scipio had gained a strategical initiative, which is by no means identical with the offensive. To attack the Carthaginian field armies while he was still markedly inferior in numbers would be to throw away this advantage and imperil all that he had gained. On the other hand, he held the key to any possible Carthaginian move. If they moved to regain Cartagena, itself impregnable if adequately garrisoned, and still more so when the defender had command of the sea, he lay on their flanks with his main striking force. If they moved against him, he would have the advantage of choosing his own ground, and in addition, Carthagena would threaten their rear, for his command of the sea would enable him to transfer forces there. If they remained passive, and its inaction proved their choice, they would suffer the handicap due to the loss of their base, depot, and main lines of communication with Carthage. Nothing could have suited Scipio better, for the respite allowed the moral effect of the Cartagena's capture to sink into the minds of the Spanish, and allowed him time to win over fresh allies to offset his numerical handicap. The result proved the soundness of his calculation, for during the next month, El Deco, Anabeles, and the Mandonius, 3 of the most powerful chieftains in Spain, came over to him, and most of the Iberian tribes followed their example. As Polybius justly says, the Apologies, I needed to check something. As Polybius justly says, something happened to audio. Yeah, I just dropped it for a second. You're good. Yeah. I just needed to check something. As Polybius justly says, those who have won victories are far more numerous than those who have used them to advantage, and Scipio, more than any other great captain, seems to have grasped the truths that the fruits of victory lie in the after years of peace, a truth hardly realized even today, despite the lessons of Versailles. The outcome was that Hasdrubal Barca, faced with the shifting of the balance, felt forced to take the offensive. This gauged Scipio. Thus reinforced, was not loth to accept, for it promised him the chance to deal with the one hostile army before the others had joined it. But with the principle of security impressed on his mind, he still further strengthened his forces, to meet the possibility that he might be forced to fight more than one army at once. This he did, by the ingenious measure of hauling his ships on shore at Taraco and adding their crews to his army, a course which was feasible because the Carthaginian ships had been swept from the sea, and because he was about to advance onto the interior. His foresight in exploiting the workshop resources of Cartagena gave him an ample reserve of weapons from which to arm them. Hello, Haru. Hello, hello, hello. Drown. Well, stop. Stop it. Stop. No. No. Ah. Arr. But thank you for the drown check. You've been poking me in the face. You got my nose. You did poke me in the nose. I felt it. My nose. You don't appreciate this. Not many VTubers have noses, you know. Not many VTubers have noses, and you're just poking it. You're poking that nose. What if it disappears? What if it disappears, huh? Huh? What would you do then? You probably poke the blank spot where that nose was. Thank you. Where were we? Oh, yes. Rua Voidy. Rua. Wait, what's that word? Valdi. No, I'm not gonna be Voldemort. I like my nose. I don't want my nose to disappear. I don't want my nose to disappear. No, 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 no. No. I'm too. Do you see how ugly Voldemort is? I'm too pretty to be Voldemort. I'm so egotistical. I get one good model and I'm like, oh, look at my hair. I should be a hair model now, like, wow. He was hot when he was human. Was he? I don't remember. I didn't watch much Harry Potter, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't watch much Harry Potter. It was just one of those. Excuse me. I'm eepy. Some shampoo brand sponsor this man. Yeah? Why not? Look how silky. I may not have the big fluffy hair of Son Albionus, but I think it's not bad. While Hasdrubal was still preparing... Oh, and by the way, we're starting a new book today. It's Scipio Africanus, who was a great Roman general who saved Rome, essentially, during the Second Punic War. But I'm sure you know all about him. He is quite a famous general, I will say. If I'm looking over here, I'm trying to look also to chat, but also that's just where kind of my chat is. So I don't know if I should, when I'm talking to chat, should I look over at chat? Or should I be talking at the camera? I feel like I should be, or at you. There's no camera here. This is real life immersion. Yay, new book. Listen while you play. Ooh, what are you playing? While Hasdrubal was still preparing, Scipio moved. On his advance from winter quarters, he was joined by Annobales and Mandonius with their forces, handing over to them their daughters whom he had apparently retained because of their key importance, unlike the other hostages taken at Cartagena. Next day he made a treaty with them, of which the essential part was that they should follow the Roman commanders and obey their orders. Scipio evidently appreciated the importance of unity of command. The army of Hasdrubal lay in the district of Castellon, near the town of Bacula, on the upper reaches of the Baetis, today called the Guadalquivir. On the approach of the Romans, he shifted his camp to an admirable defensive position, a small but high plateau deep enough for security and wide enough to deploy his troops, difficult of access on the flanks, and with a river protecting its rear. The formation of this plateau, moreover, was in 2 steps, and on the lower Hasdrubal posted his screen of light troops, Numidian horse, and Balearic slingers, while on the higher ridge behind he entrenched his camp. Sword of Convaleria. I've never heard of that game. You had to catch up with the event. Oh, is it another is that another like gacha game, or like there's all pretty boys and pretty girls and you can get skins for them? Is that what that game is, Haru? Because whenever people talk of events, that's just what I assume when they're like, oh, my dailies. It's gacha, but the lore is good. The lore is always good. The lore is always good on those games. That's how they get you. That's how they get you. You gotta play more to get more of the lore. But you guys can see, maybe in this image, you can see Hasdrubal's camp. You can see how close they are to Bekula. You can see kind of, so the way you read these maps, I don't know if you guys have ever read these maps before, is the closer the lines are, the steeper the ground is, basically. So you can see as it gets up to Hasdrubal's camp, it starts to get very steep, and that's going to be, like, I mean, fighting uphill is not a fun time. And then you can see in front of him, kind of in front of that line, there is his light troops, his Numidian horses, and they are a very dangerous group of people. And then you can see Scipio's camp, kind of a little bit away from them. And there's quite a couple of lines here. It might be hard to see. I don't know how detailed it is on the stream, but you can see Scipio goes from one area. Light troops are sent also to deal with the Numidians, and then a group of Laelius flanks around. So let's see how they deal with this. Oh, wait. Next page. There we go. Scipio for a moment was at a loss how to tackle such a strong position, but not daring to wait lest the other 2 Carthaginian armies should come up. He devised a plan. He sent the Velites and other light troops to scale the first step of the enemy position, and despite the rocky ascent and the shower of darts and stones, the determination and practice in using cover enabled them to gain the crest. Once a footing was secured, their better weapons and training for close combat prevailed over skirmishers trained for missile action, with ample space for a running fight. Thus the Carthaginian light troops were driven back in disorder on the higher ridge. Scipio, who had the rest of the army ready, but inside their camp, now dispatched the whole of his light troops with orders to support the frontal attack. So you can see there's like 4 arrows going from the Roman camp. That's his light troops moving forward. While dividing his heavy infantry into 2 bodies, he himself led one half around the left flank of the enemy's position, and sent Laelius's with the other to skirt the opposite flank of the ridge until he could find a good line of ascent. So I guess this image, because Scipio on this image is going to the right, I'm guessing it's done such that, I don't know if maybe this is the incorrect, maybe they labeled the lines wrong, but if Scipio went on the left, maybe he means Hasdrubal's left. Hasdrubal's left flank is probably what he means. Making the shorter circuit, Scipio's men climbed the ridge first and fell on the Carthaginians' flank before they had properly deployed, as Hasdrubal, relying on the strength of his position, had delayed leading his main forces out of the camp. Thus, trapped before they had formed up and while still on the move, the Carthaginians were thrown into disorder, and during the confusion, Laelius came up and charged their other flank. It may be mentioned that Livy, in contradiction to Polybius, says that Scipio led the left wing, and Laelius the right, a divergence obviously due to whether the position is considered from the attackers or the defenders' side. Okay, so maybe that's why they did that. Polybius states that Hasdrubal's original intention, in case of a reverse, had been to retreat to Gaul, after recruiting as many of the natives as possible, to join his brother Hannibal in Italy. Whether this be surmise or fact, as soon as Hasdrubal realized the battle was lost, he hurried from the hill with his treasure and his elephants, and collecting in his retreat as many of the fugitives as he could, retired up the river Tagus in the direction of the Pyrenees. But Scipio's double envelopment, and still more his foresight in sending beforehand 2 cohorts to block 2 of the main lines of retreat, caught as in a net the bulk of the Carthaginian troops. 8,000 were slain, 12,000 taken prisoner. While the African prisoners were sold as slaves, Scipio once more showed his political sagacy by sending home the Spanish prisoners without ransom. Polybius says, quote, Scipio did not think it advisable to follow Hasdrubal, as he was afraid of being attacked by the other generals. And to a military critic, the reason is convincing. It would have been foolhardy to press farther into the mountainous interior with 2 more hostile armies, superior in strength, able to converge on him or to cut him off from his base. A bare statement of the military problem is ample answer to those, mainly civil historians, who decry Scipio on the score that he allowed Hasdrubal to quit Spain and to move into Italy on his ill-fated attempt to join Hannibal. It is interesting to note that Hasdrubal followed the route of Wellington after Vittoria, making his way to the northeast coast of Spain and crossing by modern San Sebastian and the western gap where the Pyrenees slope down to the sea. To pretend that Scipio, had he remained on the defensive, could have barred this passage is absurd, based as he was on the eastern coast. Either of the other Carthaginian armies could have contained him while Hasdrubal slipped through one of the numerous western passes, or again, if he attempted so distant a move, through wild and mountainous country, not only would he have exposed his base, but had invited disaster. But for Scipio's offensive and victory at Baecula, Hasdrubal could have entered Gaul in force, and thus have... But for Scipio's offensive and victory at Baecula, Hasdrubal could have entered Gaul in force, and thus have avoided the 2 years' delay, so fatal to the Carthaginians' cause, enforced by his need to recruit and reorganize his army in Gaul before passing on. The aftermath of Baecula, like that of Cartagena, contains 2 incidents which illuminate Scipio's character. The first was when the Spanish allies, old and new, all saluted him as king. Edeco and Annibales had done so when joining him on the outward march, and he had then paid little attention. But when the title was re-echoed so universally, he took action. Summoning them to an assembly, he, quote, told them that he wished to be called kingly by them, and actually to be kingly, but that he did not wish to be king or to be called so by anyone. After saying that he ordered them to call him general. And this was given by Polybius. Livy, relating this incident in other words, adds, quote, even barbarians were sensible of the greatness of mind which from such an elevation could despise a name, at the greatness of which the rest of mankind was overawed. It is assuredly the clearest indication of Scipio's mental stature that in the first flush of triumph this youthful conqueror could preserve such self-command and balance of mind, weighed solely by his character. Apart from his achievements, Scipio has claims to be considered the highest embodiment of the Roman virtues, humanized and broadened by the culture of Greece, yet proof against its degenerative tendencies. The second incident, whether it be due solely to the sympathetic insight which peculiarly distinguished him, or to the diplomatic foresight which made this gift of such estimable value to his country, is equally significant. The quaestor selling the African prisoners came upon a handsome boy, and learning that he was of royal blood, sent him to Scipio. In answer to the latter's questions, the boy said that he was a Numidian, his name Massiva, and that he had come to Spain with his uncle Massinissa, who had raised a force of cavalry to assist the Carthaginians. That, disobeying his uncle, who considered him too young to be in battle, he had, quote, clandestinely taken a horse and arms, and without his uncle's knowledge gone on the field, where, his horse falling, he was thrown and taken prisoner. Scipio asked him whether he wished to return to Massinissa, and, on his assenting with tears of joy, presented the youth with, quote, a gold ring, a vest with broad purple border, a Spanish cloak with gold clasp, and a horse and a horse completely caparisoned, and then released him, ordering a party of horse to escort him as far as he chose. It's interesting that he got a vest with broad purple border. Purple is a kingly color in Rome, so I think he's recognizing very acutely, giving this boy a bit of royal look. Scipio then fell back on his base and spent the remainder of the summer in exploiting the effect of the victory by securing the alliance of most of the Spanish states. His wisdom in not following up Hasdrubal was justified by the fact that within a few days after the Battle of Besula, Hasdrubal, son of Gisco, not the other Hasdrubal, Barca, the brother of Hannibal, and Mago arrived to join Hasdrubal Barca. This arrival, too late to save the last named from defeat, served to bring about a conference to settle their future plans. Realizing that Scipio, by his diplomacy and his victory, had gained the sympathies of almost all of Spain, they decided that Mago should transfer his forces to Hasdrubal Barca and go to the Balearic Isles to raise fresh auxiliaries. That Hasdrubal Barca should move into Gaul as soon as possible, before his remaining Spanish troops deserted, and then march on into Italy. That Hasdrubal, son of Gisco, should retire into the remotest part of Lusitania, near Gades, modern Cadiz, where alone the Carthaginians might hope for Spanish aid. Finally, Massinissa, with a body of 3,000 horse, was to have a roving commission, his object being to harass and ravage the lands of the Romans and of their Spanish allies. The chronology of these years is somewhat difficult to determine, but the victory at Besula seems to have been in 208 BC. The next year, Scipio's hold on the country was threatened afresh. A new general, Hanno, had come with a fresh army from Carthage to replace Hasdrubal Barca. Mago also had returned from the Balearic Isles, and after arming native levies in Celtiberia, which embraced parts of modern Aragonia and Old Castile, or Aragon, modern Aragon and Old Castile, was joined by Hanno. Nor was the threat only from one direction. I didn't know one direction were so dangerous. For Hasdrubal, son of Gisco, had advanced from Gades into Baetica, Andalusia. If Scipio moved into the interior against Hanno and Mago, he might find Hasdrubal across his rear. Therefore, he detached his lieutenant, Silanus, with 10,000 foot and 500 force, to attack the former, while he himself apparently kept watch and check on Hasdrubal. I'm going to take that off and let Ipi Rua be seen again. Little Ruru. Silanus marched so fast, despite the rugged defiles and thick woods of his route, that he came the Carthaginians before any messengers or even rumors had warned them of his approach. The advantage of surprise offset his inferior strength, and falling first on the Celtiberian camp, where no proper watch or guard was kept, he had routed them before the Carthaginians had come up to their aid. Mago was with almost all of the cavalry and 2,000 foot, fled from the field as soon as the verdict was clear, and retreated towards the province of Gades. But Hanno and those of the Carthaginians who arrived on the field when the battle was decided were taken prisoners. And the Celtiberians' levies so thoroughly dispersed as to nip in the bud the danger that other tribes might copy their example and join the Carthaginians. It is characteristic of Scipio that he was unstinting in his praise of Silanus. Having thus ensured the security of his flank from an advance southward, he moved against Hasdrubal, whereupon the latter not only fell back in indecent haste, but lest his united army should attract Scipio onto him, he broke it up to form small garrisons for various walled towns. Scipio, seeing the enemy thus abandon himself to a passive defensive, decided that there was no object in conducting a series of petty sieges likely to drain his own force without adequate advantage. However, he sent his brother Lucius to storm one town, Oryx, which served Hasdrubal as a strategical pivot from which to make incursions into the inland states. This task Lucius carried out successfully, and Scipio's nature is again instanced in the record that he commended Lucius with the highest praise, representing the capture of Oryx as equal in importance to his own feat at Cartagena. As winter was now approaching, he dismissed the legions to winter quarters and sent his brother with Hanno and other distinguished prisoners to Rome. So, Scipio has done pretty well for himself. He's completely cut off the Carthaginians from New Carthage. He's defeated Hasdrubal Barca, and now he's had his own kind of sub-commanders win very important battles. But I think that is where we're going to end that reading today. We actually made pretty good headway. We're into chapter 5. We're at page 56. And this is just a bit under 300 pages. So, I mean, if we keep at this pace, we could probably be finished by... maybe 6 streams? 5 streams? And I might do longer reading streams too. I just need to be in bed soonish. So, maybe if I start a stream a little bit earlier. I did mean to start a stream. I didn't mean to start this stream a little bit earlier, but I kind of got caught up a little bit on something. Let me pull my OBS over here. Well, yeah, I hope you guys. Let me move myself a little more centered. There we go. I hope you guys enjoyed the reading and learning a little bit about Scipio Africanus. His story only gets more insane. Trust me. He was a very competent individual, very competent general, and as B.H. Littleheart says, he may even have been greater than Napoleon, who himself, as much as people may joke and tease the French about being, they say surrender monkeys, or that the white flag is their national flag. France as a country have the most victories in the world, and many of the greatest generals often come from France, those with the highest victories. And then, of course, Napoleon is just has a wacky few instances in his life of being insane as a commander. But, I think we might try and just raid into someone who is live. Is anyone doing ASMR? Oh, Red is just about to begin his ASMR stream. I suppose we can raid into Red, I suppose. He's starting soon, so do I wait for him to start? Maybe I do wait for him to start. Oh my god, Goku is in his stream. No, I just saw him post a chat where it's like, "Hi Goku." It's a viewer, but the real Goku is there. I'm definitely looking forward to getting more into this, because I mean, there's some stories that are some battles that I'm not familiar with. I'm vaguely familiar with some of them, but the Battle of Basuta was a new one to me. I had heard about his taking of New Carthage, but I never really learned how he had done it. So learning that he had done it through a very impressive maneuver, timed incredibly well with the low tides and stuff, is pretty cool. But yeah, I think we'll raid into Red. So Red is another ASMR streamer. Very cozy, very nice traditional ASMR. I think you guys will like him. He's very, very soft and gentle. So, Uh, what do I want to say? Oh yeah, I'm gonna try and stream a good bit anyway. I'm gonna try and at least like 4 streams a week. I don't know. I kind of like that system. It kind of helps like either like stream break stream, maybe like 2 streams or something. I don't know. But the more I stream, the more I get to do stuff, I suppose. So Gareb Mila Mahagut, and Red is now on screen, so I can rate him. Gareb Mila Mahagut and Slán Gafoil, and I will see